what Seeley is talking about. Well, she is definitely not the only person who feels that way. I can talk to another young woman from Sheffield, Pauline Narvas. And Pauline, you're a digital engineering graduate, and you've actually blogged about having imposter syndrome. So talk me through it. But when did this imposter syndrome rear its ugly head?
Hi, yeah. So I think for me it was when I was applying for a job after graduating from the University of Sheffield. So I actually graduated with a degree in biomedical sciences, but I've always been really keen in exploring the tech industry. And throughout uni, actually, I was doing a lot of things around tech societies and just getting involved with the local sort of tech community. But when it got to a point where I had to apply for a job after university, I was quite hesitant to apply for a job in the tech field, just because I didn't have a computer science background, and even though I'm a self-taught developer and I've built websites and apps in my spare time, it's always been quite difficult for me to apply, knowing that I didn't have that sort of I wouldn't say proper foundation, but I think that's what it felt like. So after I finished university, when I was looking at places to work, it was really difficult for me to see what to see myself in the tech industry, even though I had experience in it.
And why do you think that was?
I think it was just, imposter syndrome is just, making you feel like you're a fraud. And I think for me, it was the fear of actually getting accepted somewhere and then going into the office and then someone talking to me about these very technical terms that I've never come across and being found out, if that makes sense. So
yes.
It was just this fear that I'd walk in and actually know nothing, and for people to sort of ridicule my lack of knowledge or lack of a background in that sort of field. So that's what it was for me, and it really did make me not want to apply at all. So during my during my degree, I did a placement year in a university, but I did it in communications and marketing. So I actually ended up looking for a related sort of graduate job in comms and marketing rather than tech, even though I really did want to pursue tech.
So it's actually quite debilitating. This imposter syndrome is actually forcing you down a path that you don't actually want, but not allowing you to follow your actual dreams.
Yeah, exactly, and it actually worked. And I ended up for the summer after I graduated, I did a comms role instead of a tech role, because comms was something I'm very comfortable with. So I was like, I know that this is something I'm good at. People have said that I'm good at it, and I have the proof that I'm good at it. But even though I had this proof that I was good at tech as well, it was
you couldn't believe yourself.
Too scary. Yeah, I couldn't do it. I was doubting myself a lot.
Stay there, Pauline, because I'm going to just bring in Karen Perkins. She's a life coach, and I wonder what just listening to what Pauline and Seeley talked about there. Does this ring any bells for you?
Definitely, yes. Well, quite a few people come to me for career coaching. So one of the things they say is, should I be applying for this job? Will I get it? It's beyond me. A lot of people, they go through all the job description and they say, I can only do 3 things, but actually they can do more. Or some of them, if they're really confident, might say, I can do it all. But it tends to be male-female thing, but not so much now. But
I was going to ask you about that, because there's this sort of, I've heard this banded around that men will apply for a job if they can do sort of 60% of the job description.
That's
but for
right.
women, it has to be 100%. And I felt like that. I've always felt like I have to know 100% that I can do the job, and probably, be really confident in that, really confident before I even apply for something.
What I usually do is we find the jobs that they really like and then go through each bit step by step. And and they give me an example of something they've done, and they suddenly go, oh, I've actually done that, right, write that down. And then by picking the job apart, you can sort of break it down a bit and make yourself more confident. Or you could ask your friends and colleagues to write down all the good examples of things that you've done, say, in tech, and then you can sort of have a look at them and get your confidence up.
Well, Karen, we're going to leave it there for a minute. We're going to have a quick break, but when we come back, I'm going to get a bit more advice from you, and I want to hear from Pauline about how she beat imposter syndrome. We'll be talking more about this in a little while.
Toby Foster at breakfast.
He was basically, you think, I'm not good enough for this, or this is something that I'd like to do, but I don't feel it's for me. Maybe I could do it, but no, actually, no. Or you're in a job and you think at any moment someone's going to find me out. I shouldn't be doing this. It can be really debilitating. It can actually stop you following your dreams. I've been talking to Pauline Narvas, who was basically stopped pursuing the job that she wanted because she felt that she just didn't have quite enough experience. We'll be hearing a bit more of her story, and we'll be hearing from life coach Karen Perkins about how to beat imposter syndrome. And a lot of the time, actually, you can do it, or, often when you've got a new job, you've got to have a period where you learn things, and that's just the way it is, but it can be really debilitating. And we heard earlier from Pauline Narvas, who effectively stopped applying for her dream job because of imposter syndrome. So let's go back to where you apply, you come out of uni, you really wanted a job in the tech industry, but you stopped yourself, Pauline, didn't you? Because you thought, actually, I've not got quite enough experience, so I'm going to go for comms, because I did that. I did a work placement in comms. What was that like then, taking a job that wasn't really what you wanted to do? How did that make you feel?
Actually, I tried to convince myself that it's what I wanted to do. So for the first few weeks, I kept saying that, this is where I belong. This is where my career is going to progress. And, I just tried to tell myself that I enjoyed it a lot and I enjoyed coming to work. But I know deep down, especially after work, I started pursuing the other technical stuff that I love doing in my spare time anyway. So the more I did that and the more I came back to work doing comms, the more I was like, actually, I want to do this as my full-time job. But the only person that was stopping me was myself. So increasingly, as the weeks went on, I realized that actually tech is the industry I need to be in, and I just decided to pursue it after that. But the first few weeks of my my comms role, it became obvious to me that
it wasn't right.
Actually, it wasn't the right thing to do. Yeah, definitely.
So finally, you have this moment where you go, actually, blow it. I've got to go for this. Was that quite scary though?
Oh, it was terrifying. I was back and forth for weeks and weeks. I spoke to everyone, and I kept making lists on the pros and cons of, quitting the comms role and then pursuing a technical role. And I just kept going back and forth, and it got really stressful and overwhelming for me.
So you're really stressed, you're really overwhelmed, but you keep going?
Yes. Yeah. So I kept going, and one thing that really helped me was speaking to people I've worked with in the past. So I spoke to my line manager who worked with me during my placement year, and I spoke to her about just general careers advice. And she said that even though she loved working with me in the comms role, she could see there was potential for me to pursue a career in tech. And I spoke to a lot of my friends who said, you've been doing this for so long, and it's obviously something that you're very passionate about. And I sort of just worked based on what everyone was saying to me, and based on what I knew deep down, I just went to pursue it.
Brilliant.
And it was difficult. It was a lot of up and down and going back and forth, but now I'm here. So
well, because of course, and then you're looking at these job applications, and they're the same applications, they've got the same job descriptions. So how did you then start sort of filling those in and pursuing those jobs that not that long before you'd thought, I can't get this job because I don't have enough experience?
Yeah, for me it was, as discussed earlier, if I didn't tick off every single point in a job description, I was like, actually, I'm not going to apply because I'll just get a rejection email, and I just can't do that to myself. But for me, it was pushing through that doubt. And for me, it was also, I wrote down all the things that I found on the job description, and then I used as many examples as I could from like my experience, just like working with like tech societies at university and just local tech experience like that. I just started expanding on every single point that I found on the job description, and if I missed one or two, I slowly started to get over the fact that actually I don't need to fulfill every single point. And that just really helped.
And how do you feel now that you're actually working in the industry that your dream industry?
Honestly, it's incredible. Every single day, I love going to work. I'm really enjoying myself. I'm learning every single day and really pushing myself. I know that I don't regret a single thing. And I think that if I continued in my comms role, I know that every single day I would regret not applying. And eventually, I feel like I would apply. But yeah, I'm so happy that I'm here now, and it's just a fantastic industry to be a part of.
Pauline, thank you so much for sharing your story. And going back to Karen Perkins, life coach, I think there's some great tips in there, wasn't there, about
Absolutely, I think if anyone listened to that again and went through it, that would be really motivating for them. That's exactly the sort of thing to do.
Going back to your
colleague, have a group of people behind you or sort of mentoring you. So I'm in this called Sheffield Women in Technology in Sheffield, and anyone can go to it. And a lot of people go and they share tips, or they discuss different employers, or I'm sure if somebody said, I'm thinking of this job, everyone would say, oh, yeah, go for it, or you can do this, and we'll give you some tips. So whatever field you want to go into, say you wanted to get on a board, there's a group called Women in Boards, and they will support you and sort of get a peer or get some friends that you trust to sort of help you prepare. I think preparation's really good. So if you plan ahead, you're not going to feel as anxious.
Karen, I just want to put one thing to you, because let's be honest, we've all worked in places where there are people who probably shouldn't be there, to be honest, and they have blagged their way into a job that they're not quite right for. In a way, just listening to the process that Pauline went through, I wonder if actually being a bit reticent and sort of being quite self-critical, and she was obviously self-critical to a fault, and it was holding her back, but actually saying to yourself, well, what do I have the skills? And then she went through the process, and it was a sort of quite painful process, but she got there in the end, and she affirmed in her mind that she actually did have those skills, or she had enough to be able to competently do these jobs. But actually, is there something to be said for having a bit of imposter syndrome? So you do take a step back, you are a bit critical, and you go, actually, I do have a few blind spots here, and I need to work on them, and that's fine?
That's definitely fine. I think nowadays the sort of job landscape or the knowledge landscape's changing so quickly that if you can look at yourself and say, well, I've got a bit of a knowledge gap there, but I know how to fill it, I know how to learn. I'd rather have that as an employer than somebody who just makes everything up. If you say, well, I've worked on this package or this tech solution, but I could transfer it to that, and here's an example. If they're looking at how you're flexible and innovative, willing to work in teams and groups, those sorts of soft skills are really good as well. But I think if you unpick the job before you start applying for it and give yourself time to find really good examples of what you've done, you'll probably always find an example. And she said about asking friends, line managers. So just go on a fact-finding mission.
Yeah.
They'll often give you a fantastic example that you forgot about in the sort of business of your job, and then you can write it up and practice it. And if you're feeling a bit nesh, then practicing some of your examples before the job, before the interview is really good, because then when you actually go in, you're confident about talking about it. So somebody rang me the other day saying about my coaching, and she said, whoever does your social media does a good job. And I thought, normally I probably wouldn't have said much, and I was thinking about this imposter syndrome, and I said, oh, well, actually, I do it all myself. And I thought, Oh, well, I do.
Yes, and
people aren't used to being proud of what they do, but it's finding a way to say what you do and what you're proud of in a sort of a non-braggy way.
Some great advice.
Practice it. If that makes you feel anxious before an interview, it's going to come out naturally, and then you should be proud of what you do.
Absolutely.
Especially if you're techie.
Karen, we're going to have to wrap it up, but thank you so much. Got some great advice, and thank you, Pauline Narvas, for telling that story of how she beat imposter syndrome. It is 20 to 12.
I keep seeing you lately, singing your favourite songs out loud, and it's making me go